Are you trying to figure out your leadership style, or you're trying to figure out what your boss's leadership style is? In today's video, that's exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about leadership styles in business, and I have 4 very common leadership styles and how to work with them. So stay tuned, I got really good stuff for you. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Ben Preston, author of Harness Your Butterflies and creator of the Career Accelerator program aimed at helping professionals create the career of their dreams so they can live the life that they've always wanted. If you're new to the channel, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, drop me a thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm, and let's jump into the tips. Okay, so if you're coming to this video because you're interested in leadership styles, you might be an employee wondering what your boss's leadership style is, or you might be a leader trying to figure out what your leadership style is. In any case, this video is going to be really helpful for you. So let's jump into the 4 types of leadership styles in business and how those leaders can maximize their teams. Let's jump into it. Up first, we have the transformational leader. Now, a transformational leader is a leader who likes to look at things from a constantly changing standpoint and figuring out how they can transform, in the title of the name, they can transform their team into something better that they haven't had before. Now, if this is your leadership style, or if you know someone with this leadership style, transformational leaders love to see performance, they love to see progress, they love to see that things are turning out better than where they were before. If you are a leader that does manage this way, all of these leadership styles are completely valid. If you are a transformational leader, the thing that you want to watch out for is always looking for opportunities to transform. But if you're constantly in this state of things always need to change, you forget to acknowledge that people on your team are doing the best that they can. And if you are constantly looking for things to say, this needs to change, this needs to change, sometimes if you're on the receiving side of that, your team might take it as, this isn't good enough, this isn't good enough, this isn't good enough. So always make sure that you stop to smell the roses and tell your team that they're doing a great job. And then the more that you can inspire them and the more that you can kind of create that energy, the more that they are going to buy into your vision of transformation, and they're going to want to jump on that transformation train and change the things that you want to change. So transformational leaders, there you go, there's a little tidbit. Let's jump into the next leadership style. The second leadership style, drum roll please, democratic leaders. If you have ever worked for a democratic leader, you know what a blessing and a curse that this can be. Democratic leaders love having everyone's input, and they like to kind of source out everyone's perspective and opinion when it comes to making a decision. Now, this can be extremely effective when it comes to teams that need to go farther together, because the more input that you get and the more opinions that you receive shapes the end product so that it benefits everyone in the long run, and it just becomes more bulletproof, whatever you're working on. On the counter side to that, democratic leaders like to take their time and they like to get feedback. There's nothing wrong with that, but what happens is sometimes democratic leaders take too much time to get everyone's opinions that the opportunities get missed. So if you are a democratic leader, if you have a boss who's a democratic leader, the thing that works really well with them is having these heart-to-heart conversations. Democratic leaders tend to be, not that all these leadership styles can't be, but democratic leaders tend to be more empathetic, and they like to have conversations about how you're feeling and where you want to get to as an individual or as a team, let's say. And so having those conversations with those people are really, really good. But what you want to make sure that you're telling them is to only be democratic when they need to be, or when the situation requires them to be. Not every project requires democratic thinking, because things like creative, if you're a marketer or you're creative of any kind, those type of projects and workflows don't tend to do well with committees. They always say that creative isn't done by committee, and that's exactly what this means. If you're a democratic leader, make sure that you're giving your team the freedom that they require and the autonomy that they require, while still being open to receiving their opinions and being clear with them that you want to hear their opinions whenever they have them. The third leadership style in business, and this is the exact opposite of a democratic leader, it is an autocratic leader. If you have ever worked for an autocratic leader, it can be one of the most frustrating things in the world unless you respect that person. Autocratic leaders tend to be people who like to forge forward without a lot of concern about what their team says, because the autocratic leader believes that they have the information and they have the necessary skill sets and tools to move forward without more opinions. Now, in some situations, let's say in a crisis situation, autocratic leaders are really, really respected because those crises oftentimes require very decisive thinking and quick decisions that are based in fact and rationale. And sometimes those autocratic leaders in those situations become really, really successful. Now, if you are an autocratic leader or you are someone who knows an autocratic leader, the thing that you want to keep in mind is that just because you have an autocratic work style and you have an autocratic way of doing your own leadership doesn't mean that that style works for everyone. So you want to make sure that you are autocratic when it is required, but then you also get input from your team on projects that require it. So if you have, let's say, a super critical project that needs to get done super quickly, there's some way of moving forward in an autocratic way, but in other situations, you may want to get your team's opinion on how they do things or how they would like to do things and give them the say to create the workflows and the processes that they want to see because they're going to be the ones doing the work. So, autocratic leaders, respect to you, but make sure that you're open to people's feedback and you'll go far. And the fourth most common leadership style in business is the laissez faire. Laissez faire leadership, those are the people who like to give their teams autonomy, like to give their teams freedom, and if you are one of these people that have had experience with a laissez-faire leader or you are a laissez-faire leader, it can be one of the most powerful ways of succeeding in business by just your boss just letting you do whatever you want, your team, if you are a leader that thinks this way, giving your team the freedom of kind of doing their own thing, coming up with their own ideas, executing their own ways of thinking. Super, super powerful way of operating. The only downside to well, there's probably more than one, but the biggest thing when it comes to laissez-faire leadership is not giving your team enough support when they need it. And that's probably the biggest thing. So if you are a laissez-faire leader, it is perfectly valid for you to give your team the freedom that they require, but the minute that they come to you and say that they need support or they need resources or they need your help with something, you want to make sure that you drop the laissez-faire attitude and give them the support that they need because they love having that freedom, I can promise you. They love having that freedom, but at the same time, they want to make sure that they know that they can trust you and that you are supportive of whatever they're working on. Those are the main four that I had. What other leadership styles have you noticed in business? Leave me a comment below. Let me know what your leadership style is. I'd love to hear from you. Hopefully those were helpful. If you work with any of those people, I'm sure that this video will be helpful. Do more research on it. There's tons of stuff out there about these types of leadership styles in business. That's all that I have for you. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, leave me a thumbs up, drop me a comment. I have new videos every Tuesday, so I will see you there.